All right, thanks for joining us. This month's guitar journal entry is a fingerstyle arrangement for Georgia on My Mind, the Hoagie Carmichael song. This arrangement is influenced a lot by the Ray Charles version. This one's in F, although that one's in G. And obviously, you know, this is much simpler kind of arrangement, sort of meant for intermediate players, people that, you know your chords but are looking to figure out what it takes to kind of substitute some chords in and find some more interesting sounds when you're creating a chord melody. So I've created a PDF and tab and notation and lesson with some diagrams and additional tabs, and you can order that just below the video here with the link. The rest of this video will now be some close-ups and little bits about the arrangement, especially some points rhythmically that I want to point out, some things about chord substitution, and a little bit about variations on melody and fills, things in that direction. So we'll have like 3 or 4 more little sections here now to help you get in close for when you're learning this arrangement. Thanks for joining us, thanks for your support, and be sure to subscribe to the channel and visit the website. Okay, the first thing, and this is pretty obvious, is that the melody is very simple, and you need something to kind of fill the space in between when you're just doing a solo guitar thing like this. Otherwise you wind up just... and it gets a little bit too airy or too spacey. I mean, that could be good for the first time around. I wound up, continuing to pick at the arrangement and wanting to put some things in. So in this case, leaving off the last bass note and adding a fill that would be kind of in that Ray Charles sort of vein, and that's like this. What's cool about that is it gives a sense of yet another voice kind of in the middle, because otherwise we're just sketching out the top. Georgia, Georgia. Okay, and that's cool, but without the actual words, it might be just a little bit empty. So each time there's something different there. And the first time it's simpler. Okay, very simple bluesy fill. And the next time, okay, and that's just built off that F chord here too. Getting up to the 6th. And then using that 2nd to the minor 3rd. Right, and then we're doing low E, moving up to the D minor. Okay, and later on in the arrangement also, and we're up here using this F shape, and then moving that fill up higher too. Okay, that's up there. Now you can, figure out some of this if you don't feel like ordering the tab. You can kind of work your way through it. All right, and the idea is just to create that additional voice and add some more interest in between. A little bit about the bass line. That's got to continue in quarter notes in a perfect world, but at times that's got to drop out, and I kind of let those middle voices then take over, again trying to keep the arrangement sounding full if possible. At the beginning it's just alternating root and fifth. Of course, those fills are in there, but a bass player might want to do something more. Kind of walking in a little bit more of an interesting way with half-step approaches. If you really work on the arrangement for a long time, you can probably work that in, but I wanted to keep this kind of a little bit easier to do. Now, at times, like I said, that will drop out. All right, and then you gotta get the bass line coming back in. And in those cases here, where I'm kind of stuck playing a melody in the fingers here, all right, then it's just sort of plodding on one note, and that's okay. I mean, a good bass player won't be walking like crazy all the time either, so that kind of works pretty well there. Now, a lot of times you want to try to also keep the melody from landing exactly on those downbeats along with the bass note, because then you wind up just sort of doing this more strumming sounding thing. So in some cases like notice that the melody notes are alternating with the bass. The bass is continuing in those straight quarters, and I'm trying to get the melody on upbeats a little bit. Now, that might be a compromise from what the original melody actually is, but in my opinion, it kind of makes the fingerstyle arrangement here work because you're not just getting everything straight on the downbeats. And I want to point that out also here in that little sort of turnaround section going into the bridge. It's just sort of hanging on the 1 chord to the 4 and then back, and that comes out. Oh yeah, that's it here. Okay, and what's happening there is, all right, instead of going, I think it's just a little bit more interesting, and it's those little touches that make it sound like 2 different voices. So getting that chord on the upbeat and hanging it into the next bar. Kind of keeps the bass line clear. All right, so when you're practicing the arrangement, focus on little sections like that where you wind up having an upbeat pull on a chord, and try to get those to work nice and smoothly. Practice it with a metronome, of course. All right, everything else is pretty clear in the tab and notation in the PDF that you can order, again, below the video. I want to just talk about the final turnaround. It's something that's pretty cool for a tune like this, where, you know, this isn't the most advanced, far-out sounding arrangement, so if you also ended it like, it's going to sound really very lame, basically. So the backdoor turnaround gives this a much more understated, cool kind of sound, and I think that's a little bit like maybe the Charlie Christian influence that I like to think if you're just doing these sort of old jazz style, very simple, on the beat chord strums, then you want to mess with the harmony just a little bit to get it to sound a little bit cooler. Okay, so the backdoor turnaround is as follows. It's the 1 chord, then the 4 chord as a dominant 7, and then the chord built on the lowered 7th degree, in this case an E flat, and then back to the root. Okay, now what's cool about this E flat here is, well, 2 things. First of all, it allows us to hold this F note throughout the whole time, which really ties that last cadence together very nicely. And the other thing is that this E flat is related to the 5 chord in the same way that it's flat 5 substitution. Flat 5 substitution is related to it, and that's in terms of the diminished 7th chords, okay? E flat happens to be a minor 3rd away from C, okay? All right, and that's the basis of our diminished 7th triad. Of course, you know, for your actual substitution, if you're doing a 7 flat 9 substitution, you'd start a half step above the root of the dominant 7th chord, but in this case we're just looking at where the actual roots of those possible substitute dominant 7th chords are. Okay, sorry, that gets a little bit tricky and twisted there in the theory, but that's the roots of our possible substitute 5 chords. Okay, so the C7 would be our very pedestrian cadence. The flat 5 substitution is okay. Okay, that's a little bit shaving a haircut, 2 bits, like that. The next possibility then is to use that E flat, and that gives us that backdoor cadence. Okay, and a lot of times the backdoor cadence is actually played where the 4 chord is then turned into a minor. Okay, and it's a matter of ear. This 4 chord as minor would give us another common tone to the E flat chord. Okay, that D flat would be common then. I liked it in this case because with these voicings you get, okay, you get a descending chromatic line there, which is a nice way to wrap this up too. All right. The other possibility, of course, all right, out of that diminished seventh arpeggio, there would be an A7. Now that doesn't really work so well as a substitute to go back to the 1 chord. That would take us to the 6th chord, of course. That's our 5 of 6, okay? It would, let's see how it sounds. Okay, it's a little bit odd, all right? So anyway, the backdoor cadence works pretty nicely for the end. It's a cool one if you're working on your own arrangements of things, or end a mellow blues tune with that. It's a very cool chord substitution progression. All right, again, thanks for joining me for this month's Guitar Journal. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, visit the website. Thanks for your support. See you next time.